You wake in the half-light, and your mind reaches for the dashboard of your day. So many switches, so many blinking lights. You touch one and three others begin to flash. That is what life can feel like when the work has grown a shell of extras around a small beating core. The more you press, the louder it gets. The louder it gets, the less you hear what matters. Somewhere under the noise, a quiet engine is waiting to be found. Good morning, everyone. Today we begin by standing in that workshop together. I will not ask you to throw everything out. I will ask you to listen. Put your hand on the frame of your life and feel where it hums. Some hums are steady and honest. Some are rattles that only sound important. We will learn to tell the difference. This is not a race. It is a careful walk along the bench, one tool at a time. One motion at a time, until the engine that truly moves you comes back into view. You may carry long years of responsibility. You may have seen plans that promised ease and delivered clutter. I see that. The goal here is not to make your world small. The goal is to make your power clear. We will start with gentle steps that fit real days. Short checks you can do in the margin between meetings. A small note you can leave for your evening self. A choice to remove a tiny obstacle instead of forcing more effort through it. The workshop image helps. If a part does not help the engine turn, it is just paint. We will learn to scrape paint the kind way. As we move, you will hear two steady themes. First, the calm skill of noticing. You will practice it like a craft. You will set a simple test, watch the effect, and write one honest line. Second, the courage of removal. Not grand gestures that break trust. Small removals that give trust back to you. Each small win returns a little quiet. Each little quiet makes the next choice easier to hear. Over time, the machine will answer with less heat and more smooth motion. If you have tried to change before and felt tired by the noise, let this be lighter. Think of a hand on a dial, not a hammer on a wall. Think of a bench light turned closer, not a siren turned up. We will keep one metaphor across the journey so your mind can rest in a familiar room. The quiet engine, the trusted bench, the work you already know made clearer. Because this is serious, let me pause. Before the day rushes in, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, only if you truly enjoy what I am doing here. And in the comments, write your location, your time zone, and the time right now, this morning. Now, open the curtains and let the light in. Pour a glass of water, maybe brew a coffee or tea. Set your phone to Do Not Disturb and take one deep breath. Let's begin our journey this morning. Chapter 1. The First Spark. You stand in a quiet room before the work of your life. On the table sits a machine made of tasks, habits, tools, and expectations. It looks powerful at first glance. It also looks crowded. Knobs press against other knobs. Wires cross in ways that make your eyes work too hard. You reach out and twist one dial, and something distant in the frame begins to rattle. You pause. This is the first spark of simplification, not a dramatic cut, but a calmer kind of noticing. You are here to find the small beating core inside the shell. Begin by letting the noise settle. Set your hands at your sides and breathe once with care. Ask a gentle question. What is truly moving this machine? Not what looks impressive, not what photographs well. What quietly carries the weight? The answer does not arrive as a grand theory. It arrives as a steady feeling in your palms and a cleaner picture in your mind. Some parts hum with honest purpose. Some parts only hum because they are loose. The first spark is the choice to hear the difference. Walk the frame with your eyes. Pretend you know nothing about how it is supposed to work. Watch what happens when you touch one place at a time. Nudge a small habit in your morning and see if anything real changes by evening. Adjust one meeting and watch how your afternoon breathes. You are not hunting for a perfect plan. You are looking for the backbone, the path that actually carries motion from start to finish. When you find a piece that holds load, mark it in your mind as a true part of the engine. When you find a piece that does not change outcomes, mark it as paint. People at your stage of life know the weight of responsibility. You have carried projects and families and teams across rough ground. So the goal here is not to shrink your world. The goal is to make your power clear again. Complexity often grows as a form of care. We add safeguards, reminders, and extras because we want things to go well. Over time, those extras form a shell that rubs away energy. The first spark is the skill of seeing where care has turned into clutter. You are not scolding yourself. You are respecting your effort by giving it a cleaner path. A good way to start is with a day you know well. Picture your morning as a bench with a few tools on it. Your alarm is a tool. Your first drink of water is a tool. The screen you reach for is a tool. Lay them out in the order they touch your attention. Now ask a simple question for each. Does this tool help the engine turn? If it does, keep it on the bench. If it only fills the bench, move it aside for now. Do this in small steps. Keep the rest of the day as it is. Let one clean change speak. Most people are surprised at how much relief a small removal can bring. While you notice the parts, pay attention to the sensations of friction and flow. Friction is not only hard work. Friction is also hesitation, double-checking, and a quiet dread of opening a certain file or drawer. Flow is not only speed. Flow is also steady breathing, fewer questions, and a feeling that the next step is already waiting for you. The first spark teaches you to read these subtle signs. You will start to feel where flow wants to go, and you will learn to stop pouring effort into a route that always slows you down. Keep a small pocket notebook or a simple page within reach. Write one line when you change one thing. Write one line when you feel something shift. Keep the language plain. Do not grade yourself. You are building a ledger of reality, a map of what actually happens in your life and work when you touch the machine. This habit turns hunches into knowledge. It also gives you a calm record you can trust when memory tries to make old patterns look better than they were. You may ask how this helps on a busy team or in a complex job. The answer is that clarity scales. When you know the few pieces that truly carry the load, you protect them with attention and time. You schedule them when your energy is strongest. You surround them with fewer interruptions. You stop forcing them to share a shelf with noisy extras. People around you can feel the difference even if they cannot name it. Meetings shorten. Status checks shrink. Work moves with fewer handoffs and fewer surprises. The machine begins to sound like itself again. The first spark also teaches a kind of skepticism. Not cynical, not hard, just precise. When a new task arrives, you ask where it fits on the engine. Does it connect to the spine of the work? If yes, you welcome it and give it a clear job. If no, You ask if it belongs somewhere else or not at all. This is not a gate that keeps people out. It is a door that opens only to rooms with purpose. Over time, this habit reduces the subtle guilt that comes from saying yes to things that do not matter and then carrying them like stones in your pockets. Expect some feelings to rise as you begin. You may feel a rush to fix everything at once. Resist that. You may feel regret about time spent in a crowded way. Let that pass without judgment. You may feel fear that removing one thing will cause a failure you cannot fix. That fear deserves respect, and it also deserves a fair test. The first spark is not reckless. It is careful. Move one piece. Wait. Watch. If the engine wobbles, you can put the piece back. If the engine steadies, you have found a gift. Here is a simple practice to close your day. Sit for a minute with your notebook open. Write 3 short lines. First, the part that moved the engine today. Second, the part that rattled without purpose. Third, the smallest cut or swap you will try tomorrow. Keep each line to plain words. This practice takes less than a minute and returns more than an hour over time because it trains your attention to look where power lives and where it leaks. Another helpful practice is a morning warm start. Before opening your messages, touch the one task that clearly sits on the spine of your work. Give it a small, clean push. 10 quiet minutes on the true path is worth an hour spent navigating extras. The feeling of early motion settles the rest of the day. It also reminds you why this system exists at all, to turn intention into real outcomes with less waste and more grace. You might wonder how this connects to larger goals and the later parts of the book. The first spark gives you a lens. With it, you will be able to walk back to the sentences that once demanded extra parts. You will be able to ask if those needs still hold. You will be able to subtract with confidence because you have touched the engine and learned what matters. You will be able to hold the whole picture without being crushed by detail, and you will be able to design the surface of your work so that others can meet it without stress. For now, keep the room quiet. Keep the bench simple. Keep the metaphor close. Your life and work already have a strong engine inside them. You are not building worth from nothing. You are clearing the view so worth can breathe. As the day ends, listen again. If a part does not help the engine turn, it is paint. If a part carries load with calm, it is the spine. This is the wisdom of the first spark, the gentle skill that lets every later change land in the right place. Micro-action to close this chapter. Choose one small part of your morning that you can touch without risk. Move it or remove it for a single day. Write one honest line about what happened. If the engine turns with less heat, keep the change for one more day. If nothing improves, put it back and try a different place. Let small truths guide you instead of pressure. Soft bridge to the next chapter. With a glimpse of the backbone beneath the costume, you are ready to walk from many to few, turning a crowded bench into a clear line where the engine can finally run the way it was meant to run. Chapter 2. From many to few. You return to the bench with a calmer eye. The room is the same, yet your attention is different. Yesterday, you looked for the backbone. Today, you will lighten everything that sits around it. The aim is not speed. The aim is clarity. You begin by naming what is in front of you without judgment. Each task, habit, tool, or rule is simply a part. Parts do not have pride. They either carry load or they ride along. Your work is to tell which is which. Lay the system out in plain language. Write the path your work follows from the first spark of intention to the real outcome someone can touch. Keep the story short. Now trace that path again and place each part on the map where it actually acts. If a part has no clear moment where it changes the story, set it on a side shelf. Not gone, just waiting. This first pass is gentle. You are not cutting, you are learning to see. For each part that remains on the map, ask 3 simple questions. What fails if this part is removed? What degrades if this part is made lighter? Which 2 parts are secretly doing the same job? These questions are not tricks. They are doors to understanding. When you remove a part, do it in a safe trial. Change one thing, then watch. Give the system time to speak. Degradation shows up as more rework, more confusion, or more subtle friction. Improvement shows up as steadier flow and fewer surprises. The lesson is always in the feel as much as the metric. Reduction is a craft, not a stunt. Courage matters, but patience matters more. Move in small steps so that mistakes stay cheap and trust remains intact. Think like a carpenter who trims a door that sticks. They do not saw the door in half. They shave a little, test the swing, then shave a little more. Your system deserves the same respect. When you feel the thrill of cutting, take a breath and slow your hand. Excitement is not proof. Keep a simple record of every change, before and after in one line each. What you touched, what you observed, what you decided. This notebook is more than memory. It is a mirror that keeps you honest when habit tries to rewrite history. Over time, this record becomes a quiet teacher. Patterns appear. You will notice that certain kinds of parts rarely change outcomes. You will notice that other kinds of parts deserve protection because even a small nudge breaks flow. Watch for false savings. A false saving is a cut that looks clean in one place and leaks cost somewhere else. You skip a review, and later you pay with a longer fix. You shrink a file, and later you pay with confusion because its purpose is no longer clear. The test for false savings is simple. Did the total effort fall, or did it just move? If you do not know, extend the trial a little longer. Real improvement stays real across the whole path from start to finish. Another source of clutter is twins that crept into the system. 2 tools that capture the same data. 2 steps that check the same risk. 2 rules that guard the same boundary. Twins are heavy because they double the places where things can get out of sync. To resolve twins, merge them into one clean part that does a single job well. If a twin survives for a real reason, make that reason visible so no one wastes energy trying to merge it later without context. Confusion also hides inside parts that do too many jobs. One step tries to collect information, prevent errors, enforce a standard, and prepare a report. The load is too mixed to manage. Split this kind of part into clear jobs with clear handoffs. When each part has one purpose, it becomes easier to improve and easier to teach. The system grows simpler without becoming brittle because each piece can be seen for what it actually does. As you reduce, protect the backbone you found in the first chapter. Schedule work on core parts when your energy is strong and distractions are low. Give these parts the quiet they deserve. Everything else can orbit them. This single choice often makes reduction easier because you stop asking core parts to carry extra weight. A light spine makes the rest of the body move with grace. In a team setting, Invite a short session where each person explains where their part truly touches the path. Ask them to point to a moment, not a title. Ask for a story of a real day. Often you will learn that a step everyone thought was essential is actually a courtesy, or that a check people treat as formal is really a quick glance that catches little. These conversations are not about blame. They are about reality. When reality speaks, reduction becomes a shared relief rather than a private fight. Expect a quiet fear to show up as you move from many to few. The fear says that more parts mean more safety. Sometimes that is true. Often it is not. Every extra part adds edges where things can snag. Every extra handoff adds a chance to drop the thread. Safety grows when purpose is clear, flow is steady, and every part can be seen at a glance. Remember the carpenter. A snug door is safe. A jammed door traps you when time matters. Your senses are tools in this chapter. Listen for rattles, the sounds that come from parts that are loose in purpose. Watch for pauses, the moments where people stop to ask which step comes next or which tool they should use. Feel for drag, the slow pull that adds nothing to quality yet drains energy. When you find rattles, pauses, or drag, mark them and look for a nearby part that can be removed, merged, or split. Do not forget the surface where people meet the system. Sometimes many to few begins on that surface. Reduce visible choices to the few that truly matter now. Move supporting options behind a clear link that appears only when context calls for it. Write labels in plain words. Replace insider terms with simple names that match what people are trying to do. Every cut on the surface lowers the cost of learning and frees attention for the real work beneath. At the end of each day in this chapter, review 3 small items. First, the part you removed or merged. Second, the effect that change had on flow or clarity. Third, the next likely candidate for reduction. Keep these notes short and humane. You are not scoring yourself. You are refining taste. Taste is the sense that tells you when a design has just enough form to carry strength and no more. This chapter is also about kindness to future you and to new teammates. When the system has fewer parts, the story is faster to teach. Onboarding feels like opening a well-made drawer where every tool has a place and a purpose. New hands can be trusted sooner. That trust is not a feeling. It is a result of less hidden complexity and fewer chances to stumble. Simplicity is a form of generosity. There will be places where reduction must stop for now. Dependencies you cannot change. Regulations you must honor. Interfaces you do not control. Respect these boundaries and place a note in your record about why they remain. Each note is a promise to revisit when conditions shift. Patience here prevents frustration and keeps the team aligned with reality rather than with perfect pictures. Micro-action to close this chapter. Choose a small area of your work that you can safely test for 1 week. List the parts in that area in the order they touch the path. Pick one low-risk part that looks like paint. Remove it for 2 days. Watch for real change in effort, errors, and calm. Write 1 honest line at the end of each day. If flow improves, keep the cut for 2 more days. If nothing improves or a new cost appears, restore the part and mark it as necessary for now. Let the trial teach you instead of opinion. Soft bridge to the next chapter. As the bench grows lighter and the path grows clear, a deeper question stands waiting at the head of the table. Who asked for the extra weight in the first place? To move from many to few for good, you must walk upstream and question the requirement itself. Chapter 3. Question the requirement. You stand at the headwaters of your work and listen to the stream that feeds everything downstream. Yesterday, you pulled weight off the frame. Today, you walk upstream to ask why the weight was there at all. This is the chapter where simplification grows roots. Cutting parts without checking the need is like sweeping leaves while the tree keeps dropping more. When you question the requirement, you reach for the branch that drops the leaves, and you decide whether it still belongs. Begin with the path you mapped in earlier chapters, from first intention to a result someone can touch. Place a fingertip on each major turn in that path and ask a plain question. What need was this turn built to serve? Write the answer in simple words you could explain to a neighbor. If the answer is foggy or full of old phrases that no one uses anymore, mark it. Fog is a signal that a requirement survived longer than its purpose. Requirements are often born for good reasons. A failure happened once, and a rule was added to prevent a repeat. A team grew, and someone added a step so that people could coordinate. A tool had limits, and people built workarounds that later hardened into policy. None of this is a crime. It is how systems grow in the real world. The skill now is to hold each requirement to the light of the present. Conditions change, tools improve, risks shift. What protected quality last year might waste energy today. Create a short upstream ritual. When a rule or step slows the flow, pause. Ask 3 questions in order. First, what is the exact harm this requirement prevents today? Second, what evidence shows the harm still exists at a meaningful level? Third, what smaller or simpler guard could protect us with less cost? Answer in writing. Do not accept feelings as proof. A single honest example is better than many vague fears. If evidence is missing, the smallest fair test is to loosen the rule safely for a short time and watch. Be careful not to confuse prestige with purpose. Some requirements survive because they signal importance. A form looks official. A meeting looks serious. A checkpoint makes leaders feel present. Purpose is different. Purpose names the harm avoided or the value added in a way that can be observed. When you question a requirement, you are not challenging status. You are asking for clarity so that status can stand on real service, not ceremony. Sometimes a requirement is real, but it sits in the wrong place. A check might be needed, yet it lives after the cost has already been sunk. Move the check closer to the moment where it can still change the story. Early detection is almost always cheaper than late correction. Other times, a requirement is framed too narrowly. It demands a specific method when it only needs a specific result. Rewriting method to outcome gives people room to meet the need in simpler ways. You will meet resistance when you touch old rules. Expect it. People remember the day a mistake hurt. They do not always remember the day a tool improved or a team learned. Honor these memories. Thank people for the care that made the rule. Then return to the present. Ask for fresh evidence. Offer a small trial with clear safeguards. Make it easy for people to support the test without feeling reckless. When a trial shows no harm, let the result do the convincing. When a trial shows risk, you learn cheaply and you keep the guard with renewed trust. Write requirements that your future self can test without pride. Use sentences that name the risk and the threshold that matters. For example, you might write that a step exists to reduce late handoffs below a small share of total deliveries measured over a real period. Notice the shape of that sentence. It names a risk, a target, and a time frame in words anyone can check. It does not rely on titles or feelings. It invites measurement without drama. Later, if conditions change, your future self can retire the rule with grace or keep it with confidence. A common source of heavy systems is layered requirements. One was added for a purpose that faded. Another was added to fix pain caused by the first. A third was added to monitor the second. The weight is not in any single layer. The weight is in the stack. To unwind a stack, start from the top and ask whether the pain still exists when you imagine removing the lower rule. If the lower rule was the true source of friction, removing it often makes the upper layers unnecessary in one stroke. Watch for requirements that protect against edge cases at the expense of daily flow. It is wise to guard against rare but severe harm. It is unwise to slow every normal day to prevent a tiny risk that could be handled with a simple exception process. The test is to look at frequency and impact together in plain words. If a risk happens rarely and costs little, design a clear path for exceptions and let the main path run clean. If a risk happens often or costs much, protect it with a well-placed guard, and keep the guard as light as possible. Sometimes the best way to question a requirement is to follow its author chain. Even when you cannot find a single person, you can still find an origin moment. Ask when and where the rule first mattered. What tool or limit existed then? What regulation or contract turned that choice into a must-have? If the origin was a temporary constraint, say so in your notes and propose a trial to retire the rule. If the origin remains real, keep the rule and rewrite it in today's language so no one forgets why it exists. In team conversations, frame this chapter as shared housekeeping. Do not ask who is to blame for the extra weight. Ask together which needs are still alive and which were honored and can now be set down. Use a visible board with 2 columns. In one, write needs that remain. In the other, write needs that have faded. Then draw a line from each surviving need to the lightest guard that serves it. This simple map turns opinion into design. It also gives people a calm way to agree without losing face. Your own feelings deserve care in this chapter. Questioning a requirement can feel like erasing hard-won lessons. It is not erasure, it is evolution. The lesson stays, the form changes. You can honor past caution while shaping a cleaner path forward. When doubt rises, return to small, safe trials and honest notes. Reality is a fair judge when opinions conflict. Close each day with a short checkpoint. List 2 requirements you touched, the purpose each claimed to serve, and what you learned. If you retired one, write the effect on flow. If you kept one, write why it still earns its place. If a test failed, write the boundary it revealed so that others can avoid the same dead end. This daily habit teaches your mind to prefer truth over tradition and service over show. As requirements shrink or move, you will notice a lighter sound in the system. Handoffs tighten, checklists shorten. People feel less need to ask permission for simple sense. This is not chaos, it is clarity. The machine now reserves its friction for the few places where friction earns its keep. Everywhere else, motion becomes smooth and trust grows. Micro action to close this chapter. Choose one rule or step that adds time to your day. Write in one clear sentence the harm it claims to prevent or the value it claims to add. Find one small way to test that claim safely within a short window. Run the test with care. Record what happened in plain words. If the need proves real, keep the rule and place it where it does the most good with the least cost. If the need proves faded, retire the rule and note the change in effort and calm. Soft bridge to the next chapter. With fewer and clearer requirements, the frame is ready for bolder edits. Now you can subtract the parts with confidence, replacing each cut with understanding until the quiet engine stands in full view. Chapter 4. Subtract the parts. You return to the bench with clearer eyes and steadier hands. Requirements have been cleaned and moved to where they belong. Now the work turns from thinking to shaping. Subtraction is not a leap. It is a craft. Every part you remove must be replaced by understanding. The goal is not a bare frame. The goal is a frame that carries real load with less strain, fewer failure modes, and calmer maintenance. You will move with patience, cut with care, and let reality be your guide. Begin by mapping dependencies in plain words. Picture a simple web made of threads that tie parts to outcomes. Touch one thread and feel what shifts. If a part supports the spine directly, it earns attention. If a part touches only other parts without changing the outcome, it is a candidate for removal or merger. Say this to yourself in language a neighbor could follow. Parts exist to move the story forward. If a part cannot show where it moves the story, it does not yet earn its place. Work in a steady cadence. Test, remove, observe, document, rest, repeat. The test is small and safe. The removal is minimal. The observation is honest. The document is short. The rest is a breath that keeps you from chasing the thrill of cutting. Then repeat. This cadence builds trust within yourself and within any team around you. People do not fear change when they can see each step, feel each effect, and know that reversal is possible if harm appears. Look first for mask parts. A mask part hides a deeper flaw rather than fixing it. An extra review that compensates for unclear ownership. A helper tool that exists only because a core tool is badly named. A ritual that calms worry without altering quality. When you find a mask, do not polish it. Trace the discomfort to its root and address that root. Often, removing a mask while fixing the cause gives you 2 wins at once, less weight and more truth. Next, find twins. Twins are duplicate parts that formed over time. 2 inputs that capture the same field, 2 checks that guard the same risk, 2 handoffs that pass the same parcel. Twins double effort and split attention. Merge twins into one well-named part that does a single job openly. If both are needed for a real reason, keep both and write the reason where anyone can see it. Clarity beats confusion, even when subtraction is not possible today. Now examine mixed parts. A mixed part tries to do many jobs. It collects data, enforces a rule, manages a schedule, and produces a report. Mixed parts are heavy and fragile because every change is a tug on a knot. Split them into clear, single-purpose parts with simple handoffs. One part, one job. The effect is immediate. Testing gets easier. Fixes get faster. Teaching a new teammate gets gentler because you are no longer asking them to hold 3 ideas at once. As you subtract, protect the spine you identified earlier. Give core parts quiet time. Place them early in the day when energy and focus are high. Surround them with fewer interruptions. This is not about perfection. It is about kindness to the work that truly carries weight. A light spine makes every other motion smoother. You will notice fewer surprises, straighter paths, and a relief that shows up as lower stress at the end of the day. Keep a ledger of changes. Write one line before and one line after. What you touched, what you observed, what you decided. Small words, plain tone. Over time, your ledger becomes a map of judgment. You will see patterns that taste alone could not reveal. You will learn which cuts free flow and which cuts create hidden costs. You will become more precise, not more rigid, because your memory now has a partner that tells the truth without pride. Beware of false savings. A false saving is a cut that looks smart in one corner and leaks effort in the full journey. You drop a field from a form, and a week later you discover that someone now has to email for the same detail. You skip a light check and later pay for a heavy fix. The test is how the whole path feels and performs. If total effort falls and clarity rises, the cut is real. If effort only moved, put the part back or find a lighter form that earns its place. Use your senses as instruments. Listen for rattles, the sounds of parts that are loose in purpose. Watch for pauses, the moments where attention stalls because the next step is unclear. Feel for drag, the slow pull that adds no quality but steals energy. When you hear a rattle, ask what it is covering. When you see a pause, rewrite the surface so the next step is obvious. When you feel drag, cut the weight or move the task to a better place in the flow. The surface where people touch your system is often the richest field for subtraction. Reduce visible choices to the few that truly matter now. Delay supporting options until context calls for them. Replace insider labels with plain names that match the task at hand. Bring the next right action within one calm reach. A quieter surface reduces mistakes, shortens training, and returns attention to the depth where value is created. Teamwork benefits when subtraction is shared and visible. Host short, focused sessions where each person points to the exact moment their part changes the story. Ask for a real-day example, not a title or aspiration. Many myths melt under a single honest story. What was treated as sacred becomes optional. What was treated as optional proves to be core. Because the process is open and respectful, reduction becomes relief, not threat. Expect to meet boundaries you cannot cross today. External rules, locked interfaces, constraints that will take a season to shift. Respect them. Place a note in your ledger that names the boundary and its reason. Then do what you can within the ring you control. A system can become much simpler even when some walls stay where they are. Patience here saves energy and keeps motivation steady. Teach through narrative, not just policy. When you remove a part, tell the short story of why it existed, what changed, what you tested, and what you saw. Stories travel farther than diagrams and make the learning stick. They also honor the care that built the old part so people can let it go without feeling erased. Subtraction done with respect creates a culture that trusts change because it understands the why, the how, and the safety built into the method. As parts fall away, maintenance lightens. Fewer edges mean fewer snags. Fewer handoffs mean fewer dropped threads. Onboarding speeds up because new minds can hold the whole shape sooner. Support tickets decline because the surface now guides more people to success on the first try. These are not just numbers you could measure if you chose. They are human signals you will feel. Evenings are calmer. Weekends reclaim their borders. Work feels more like a tool and less like a maze. Do not confuse subtraction with austerity. You are not starving the system. You are feeding the core and cleaning the plate. When a part truly earns its place, you can invest in making it strong and easy to build again and again. When a part does not earn its place, you can set it aside without guilt and without the shadow of what if. This clear split reduces the mental tax of constant second-guessing and frees creative energy for real improvements. Close your day with a small triad. First, name one part removed, merged, or split and why. Second, name one effect on flow, clarity, or morale that you observed. Third, name one candidate for tomorrow, with the smallest safe test you can design. Keep each item to a single line. The power lies in the habit, not in elaborate tracking. In a short time, you will have a living archive of practical wisdom tailored to your work. Micro-action to close this chapter. Choose a small slice of your process that you can touch without risk this week. List the parts in the order they act. Mark one mask, one twin, or one mixed part. Design a short safe test to remove or refactor it. Run the test for a brief window. Note real effects on effort and calm. Keep the change if flow improves and clarity holds. Restore the part if harm appears and record the boundary you discovered. Soft bridge to the next chapter. With the frame quieter and the path straighter, the work now calls for a mind that can hold the whole in one view, not to control every detail, but to keep the intent intact as each part finds its right place. Chapter 5. The whole in one head. You stand beside the quiet engine and feel the hum travel through the bench. The frame is lighter now. The path from intention to outcome is clearer. This is the moment when simplification needs a steward who can hold the whole shape at once. Not every bolt, not every wire. The relationships, the way motion enters, how it is guided, where it leaves value behind. One mind holding the whole does not mean one person doing every task. It means one person keeping the intent intact as many hands do the work. Begin with a plain map you can carry in memory. Tell yourself the story of the system in a few calm breaths. Motion starts here. It passes through this gate. It branches there into two streams. It recombines at that joint and exits as a result someone can touch. Keep the story short enough to repeat without looking at a screen. The test for a strong whole map is simple. If a small failure appears anywhere, you can place it on the story and name which upstream and downstream parts will feel it next. Build the habit of a narrative walk. Once a day, walk the flow in your mind from first spark to finish. At each turn, silently ask what must be true for this turn to hold. Ownership must be clear. Inputs must be ready. Interfaces must be gentle. When your mind stutters, write a note. The stutter is a clue that the map and the machine have drifted apart. That small note will save a large fix later because it tells you exactly where to look. Use 3 simple lenses to see the whole more sharply. The first lens is movement of matter. What physical things travel through the system and where do they pile up? The second lens is movement of information. What facts are needed at each turn and where do they get lost or duplicated? The third lens is movement of energy and attention. Where do people get tired, confused, or interrupted. When the three lenses align, the picture becomes clear. You notice that a slow step is not just slow, it is slow because matter has no staging. Information arrives late, and attention frays at the same spot. Holding the whole means feeling trade-offs without drama. When you consider a change, ask how it touches cost, timing, reliability, and morale at the same time. A choice that wins in only one of those and quietly harms the others is a false win. A choice that holds or improves three while barely nudging the fourth is a true improvement. Write your reasoning in a few lines so that future you can see why you chose the path. This small record fights hindsight bias and protects coherence when pressure rises. To avoid becoming a bottleneck, choose the role of translator rather than controller. You do not take decisions from specialists. You give them the context of the whole so their decisions fit together. Prepare short prompts for each partner. For the person closest to users, ask what moments create friction on the surface. For the person closest to the core, ask which constraint limits flow most often. For the person closest to operations, ask where attention is overdrawn. Your questions are the weave that turns separate answers into a single fabric. Practice a short exercise called failure imagination. Once a week, pick a part and imagine it goes missing for a day. Walk the story. What breaks first? Who feels it next? What workarounds appear? The point is not fear. The point is mapping dependency truth. If the imagined failure would cascade widely, that part is core and deserves protection. If the imagined failure barely shows up, the part may be a candidate for removal or merger in later chapters. Create a shared model that others can hold too. The model should fit on one page. A simple flow with a few boxes, a few arrows, and a few notes in plain language. Keep it free of insider terms. Each box names a stage. Each arrow names what moves. Each note names the single most important risk at that stage. Post this model where work begins. When people use the same picture, they coordinate without long meetings because they can point to the same place and see the same stakes. Protect coherence with a steady review rhythm. Weekly for the flow, monthly for the constraints, quarterly for the boundaries you do not control. Keep reviews short and specific. What changed in the real world? What broke and why? What improved and why? What the next smallest test should be. A predictable rhythm calms anxiety and keeps the whole from fracturing into side projects that grow their own logic. The surface where people meet your system must connect to the depth where the work is done. As the person holding the whole, you check that every surface promise is backed by a real capability underneath. If the surface offers a choice, the depth must be able to honor it quickly. If the surface uses a term, the depth must know exactly what that term means. Many frustrations vanish when surface and depth use the same simple language. That alignment begins with you. Train yourself to notice the difference between a local optimum and a whole optimum. A local optimum makes one step shine while dimming the path. A whole optimum makes the path flow even if no single step looks dramatic. The quiet engine loves whole optima. They feel like less heat, fewer questions, and a day that ends with energy left over. When someone proposes a flashy tweak to a single part, ask how the entire path will feel afterward. If the answer is vague, keep asking until the picture is complete. Invite critique without losing intent. You can do this by sharing the why before the what. Begin feedback sessions with the goal the system is serving, the constraints that truly bind, and the user moments that matter most. Then, show the current shape and ask for the smallest changes that move the system closer to the goal without breaking the constraints or the moments. People give better advice when they are standing inside the same purpose. Guard the spine with your calendar. Put the moments that move the engine near the start of your day and week. Place meetings that coordinate the whole near them, not scattered far away. When the key parts of the system are scheduled like first-class citizens, the rest of the work naturally fits around them. This one disciplined choice gives you leverage without force. The system learns your priorities because your time embodies them. Teach the whole through story. When a decision is made, tell a short narrative that names what changed in the world, what trade-off you considered, what test you ran, and what result you saw. Stories carry intent. They let people repeat the logic in rooms you are not in. That is how a single mind can hold the whole without being present everywhere. The story becomes a shared compass and reduces the risk that well-meaning changes pull the system apart. Watch for signs that your map is drifting. Rising handoffs, repeated questions with different words, fixes that solve the same symptom in new places. These are alarms that the whole is cracking. When you hear them, pause new work and repair the map. Reconnect surface and depth. Reassert the spine. Confirm the current constraints. This is not a setback. It is routine maintenance for coherence. Holding the whole is also an act of care for people. When the map is clear, teammates feel safe to act. They do not need to ask permission for sensible moves because they can test their ideas against a shared story. Onboarding becomes humane because you are not asking new minds to juggle a hidden maze. You are handing them a simple picture and a few living principles. Confidence grows when people can predict how the system will respond. Close your day with a brief whole check. In a few lines, write the single most important motion that happened, the single rough edge you felt, and the smallest test that would smooth it. This tiny practice keeps your mind tuned to relationships rather than isolated tasks. Over time, you'll notice that you anticipate issues before they appear because your inner story is in step with the outer machine. Micro-action to close this chapter. Choose one current change you are considering. Tell the whole story of that change in 10 calm sentences or fewer. Name where motion enters, which parts will be touched, what trade-offs you accept, how you will test, and how you will know if the whole became better. Share this short story with one partner and ask for a single suggestion that strengthens coherence. Apply the suggestion and update the story. Soft bridge to the next chapter. With the map held steady in one mind and shared in many, you are ready to calm the places where people first touch the system. A quiet surface will let the depth do its work, and that is where simplicity becomes kindness in daily use. Chapter 6. Surfaces and Depths. You approach the bench and notice where people first lay their hands. Before any depth is felt, there is a surface, the handle on the drawer, the label on the jar, the first screen that greets a tired mind. If the surface is loud, the depth must shout to be heard. If the surface is calm, the depth can speak in its natural voice. This chapter is about shaping that first contact, so the quiet engine beneath can do its work without friction. Start by honoring the person who arrives at your system with a full life already in motion. They bring responsibilities, hopes, and limits. They do not want to be impressed. They want to be helped. A respectful surface meets them where they are. It uses plain words. It offers a single, clear next step. It does not demand a tour of the basement before opening the front door. You practice the skill of greeting with clarity, then inviting depth when it is truly needed. Walk through your current surface like a stranger. Say the actions aloud in simple language. If you find yourself translating jargon into normal terms, your surface is asking the visitor to do work you should have done. Replace insider words with names that match the intention someone actually holds in that moment. Choose short, humane labels. You are not dumbing things down. You are taking on the burden that would otherwise land on a tired person at the worst time. Group visible choices by the goal the visitor is trying to reach, not by the way your organization is structured. People do not think in departments or databases. They think in outcomes. When choices are grouped by outcome, attention settles. The path forward looks obvious. The mind does not need to hold a map in the air. This is how a surface can feel like a handrail rather than a maze. Reduce early choices to the ones that truly matter now. Delay the rest until context asks for them. This is not hiding power. It is shaping the path so the next right action stays within one calm reach. When you push too much complexity to the front, you force the visitor to juggle variables they do not yet understand. When you let the surface breathe, you are telling them that the system is on their side. Use rhythm and white space like tools. A crowded surface shouts, "Look at everything." A measured surface whispers, "Look here first." Short lines, clear headings, and modest contrasts guide the eye without drama. You are building a room where a person can exhale and make a good choice. The quiet engine loves rooms like that because the choices made at the surface are the seeds of smooth motion in the depth. Make your defaults do real work. A strong default serves most people most of the time without calling attention to itself. It is not a trap. It is a gift of thoughtful research and honest observation. When a default is chosen with care, it lowers the number of decisions a person must make before they see value. That relief shows up as fewer mistakes, faster progress, and a sense that the system understands the job to be done. Invite depth. Do not dump depth. When advanced options are needed, reveal them in the natural flow. A link that says, "Show more detail," is kinder than a wall of switches. A gentle hint that appears when context demands is better than a permanent panel that asks for constant vigilance. When depth is invited, people feel guided rather than tested. They can move forward with confidence because the surface is acting like a teacher, not a judge. Write microcopy with care. The shortest sentence can carry the most weight. Replace warnings that blame the user with messages that show a way forward. Replace passive notes with active guidance. If something fails, say what happened in plain words and name the next step that restores motion. A single kind sentence can lower the heat in a room and prevent a small bump from turning into a stalled day. Link the language of the surface to the language of the depth. If the surface uses a term, the depth should use the same term in the same way. If a button promises an outcome, the depth should deliver that outcome without translation. Every mismatch between surface and depth forces the visitor to become an interpreter. Interpretation is friction. Friction is waste. Aligning words is one of the cheapest, strongest forms of simplification you can achieve. Listen for the human signals that your surface needs work. Repeated questions that start with "How do I?" People skipping helpful steps because they look optional or scary. Frequent back and forth to clarify basic terms. These are not failures of attention. They are requests for a calmer surface. Treat each signal as a small kindness, a message from reality that tells you where to sand the edge or widen the doorway. Design for recovery as carefully as you design for success. A graceful recovery path is the mark of a humane surface. When someone takes a wrong turn, make the way back easy to see. When they need help, put help inside the flow, not hidden behind long forms or distant pages. When they must pause and return later, save their place in a way that feels natural. Recovery is where trust is built. A surface that forgives is a surface that people return to. Be wary of adding switches to please every taste. Each switch is a promise you must keep in the depth. Too many promises fracture the system and make the surface feel like a control room. Instead, carry out a few strong opinions drawn from reality. Then collect feedback in plain language. Where variation truly protects performance or joy, add it carefully with a story that explains why it belongs. Where variation adds noise, keep it out and stand by the choice. Test your surface with real people doing real tasks. Watch their hands and faces, not just the cursor. Where do their eyes hesitate? Where does the jaw tighten? Where does the breath shorten? Those are the places where the surface is stealing energy. Fix the design, then test again. Let the quiet engine within tell you when the surface is finally supporting rather than obstructing. You will know because the room will feel calmer while outcomes improve. Teach the team to protect the surface. Create a small ritual. Before any new feature can land, the person proposing it must show how the first touch will feel for a newcomer and for a returning visitor in a hurry. If the story is muddy, the feature is not ready. If the story is clean, you can trust that the depth has what it needs to support the promise. This ritual prevents well-meaning additions from turning the surface into a bulletin board for internal priorities. Connect the surface to your broader simplification work. A calm surface lowers the cost of training, reduces support load, and shortens the time from intention to outcome. These gains ripple through operations. Fewer status checks, fewer handoffs, more time spent on the spine of the work. When leaders ask why attention to the surface matters, tell these stories. Show how kindness here is leverage everywhere. End each day with a surface check. Choose one entry point and ask yourself 3 plain questions. Can a tired person see the next right step without reading a manual? Do the words match the work that follows? If something goes wrong, is the path to recovery clear and kind? Write one short line for each answer. These lines will shape tomorrow's improvements without the pressure of grand redesigns. Micro-action to close this chapter. Pick a single place where people first touch your system, the first page, the welcome window, the entry form, or the first minute of a call. Rewrite the visible text in plain language. Remove one choice that does not change the outcome. Strengthen one default so it helps more people more of the time. Then watch a real person use it and note what changed in effort and calm. Soft bridge to the next chapter. With the surface quiet and aligned to the depth, your learning can reach farther. The next step is to strengthen the foundation of how you see, building wide theories that sharpen judgment, so every future change bends toward clarity rather than noise. Chapter 7. The Wide Theories. You return to the workshop with the quiet engine humming, the surface calm, the map held in one mind. Now you reach for a different kind of tool, not a wrench or a file, but a way of seeing. Wide theories are like lenses in a well-kept case. Slip one over your eye, and the same bench looks new. Edges sharpen, patterns appear. The right next move becomes obvious. This chapter is about choosing lenses with long reach, then learning to use them with steady hands. Begin with the lens of change. In the world, very little is static. Things grow, decay, accelerate, and slow. The mathematics of change teaches your mind to expect motion and to ask how fast and in which direction. In practice, this means you watch trends instead of snapshots. You read slopes instead of points. When a measure rises, you ask whether the rise is steady or if it surges and rests. When a measure falls, you look for the shape of that fall and what might bend it. The lens of change keeps you from overreacting to a single day and helps you design for the path, not the moment. Next is the lens of chance. Life and work are full of uncertainty. The mathematics of chance gives you a way to think about risk, variation, and surprise without fear or superstition. You learn to ask what outcomes are likely, what outcomes are rare, and what outcomes are rare but costly. You stop chasing every fluke and start guarding the few events that could truly hurt. This lens helps you set thresholds for action, build simple tests that reveal truth, and hold your nerve when random noise tries to drag you off course. Bring in the lens of motion and limits. The physics of motion reminds you that every system has constraints. Some are hard boundaries, like time and capacity. Others are soft, like attention and patience. When you see constraints clearly, you stop blaming yourself for friction that comes from the shape of reality. You route flow around bottlenecks, relieve pressure before it breaks parts, and look for the one narrow place where a small relief unlocks a wide benefit. The quiet engine loves this lens because it prevents heroic thrashing and invites elegant paths. Add the lens of information and inference. Information is the fuel that tells parts when and how to act. Inference is the skill of drawing a sound conclusion from what you observe. With this lens, you ask whether the right facts arrive at the right time, in the right form. You test whether your conclusions actually follow from those facts, or if you have smuggled in an assumption. You trim the reports that do not change any decision. You strengthen the small set of measures that really guide action. Over time, your system stops performing for dashboards and starts performing for real outcomes. There's also the lens of decomposition and composition. Complex things become clear when you can break them into meaningful parts and then put them back together without losing the thread. Decomposition teaches restraint, one task per part, one purpose per step. Composition teaches harmony, the simple joinery that lets parts cooperate without glue everywhere. This lens pairs well with the earlier chapters. It makes subtraction safer and integration smoother because you can see where seams belong. Choose your studies with these lenses in mind. Favor ideas that touch many doors. The mathematics of change and chance, the physics of motion and constraint, the logic of information and inference, the craft of decomposition and composition. You do not need to memorize deep formulas. You need to practice a few small, honest experiments that reveal reality. Roll a simple toy down a slope and watch acceleration in your nerves. Flip a weighted coin and feel how streaks can fool the eye. Time two paths through the same task and see how a tiny delay upstream turns into a torrent downstream. When knowledge settles into your body, you stop arguing with it. A wide theory is only as good as the feedback you give it. Build a habit of making small, testable predictions and checking them. Write a line that says what you expect to happen after a change and why. Then look. If you were wrong, adjust your lens, not your pride. If you were right, do not declare victory. Ask how the effect behaves over days and weeks. Wide theories teach patience. They reward steady attention and punish flurries of excitement. Use simple mental models as pocket tools. Imagine flow as water seeking the lowest channel. Imagine friction as heat that escapes when parts rub without purpose. Imagine information as a message that must arrive intact and on time to do any good. These models are not tricks. They are bridges that connect everyday sense to formal ideas. When you can explain a choice with a model this simple, you can align a team without a lecture. Teach your team the same lenses, not with formal classes, but with small shared rituals. During weekly reviews, ask what changed and whether the change looks like a new slope or just noise. When discussing risk, ask which events are common, which are rare, and which are rare but severe. Then design your guards accordingly. When debating a feature, ask which constraint truly binds and whether easing that one place would free the path more than polishing a popular corner. In time, the team will start to ask these questions without prompting. That is how judgment becomes culture. Beware of cleverness that outruns contact with reality. Theories can seduce. They offer clean shapes and strong terms. Your job is to keep them honest. If a model does not predict or explain what you actually see, simplify the model or set it aside. If a measure does not change any decision, retire it. If a rule does not serve a real risk, remove it. Wide theories should reduce noise, not add a new secret language that hides confusion behind fine words. Balance breadth with depth. The promise of wide theories is reach, not trivia. You do not need to be the deepest expert in every domain. You do need to understand enough to ask strong questions, sense fragile assumptions, and make clean trade-offs. Learn the first principles that travel well, then pair them with lived trials in your own work. The union of clear ideas and scarred knuckles is where lasting judgment grows. Keep your lenses polished by teaching them. Explain a choice to a colleague in plain words. Show how the lens guided you, what you expected, what you saw, and what you changed. Teaching locks learning in place. It also reveals where your understanding is thin. If you stumble while explaining, return to the bench and run another small experiment. The workshop will answer with patience as long as you keep asking honest questions. Use the wide theories to guard your energy. When you can see change, chance, motion, information, and composition clearly, you waste less effort on theatrics. You stop chasing single-day spikes. You stop building for edge cases at the cost of daily flow. You stop grinding against constraints you cannot move and start moving the ones you can. Your calendar begins to reflect reality rather than wish. Your team begins to calm because the work makes sense. Let these lenses guide your choice of tools and methods. Choose tools that reveal flow, not just totals. Choose methods that test in small loops, not only in grand launches. Choose rituals that bring facts to the table while leaving room for human sense. A good tool is the one that makes a sound judgment feel easy. A good method is the one that keeps you close to feedback. A good ritual is the one that people keep without force because it saves them from confusion. End your day with a lens check. Pick one moment from the day and tell its story through each lens. What changed and how fast? What chances were at play? What constraint bound the motion? What information arrived or failed? How the parts came apart or together? 5 short lines. 1 quiet minute. You will sleep with a clearer map and wake with a better question. Micro-action to close this chapter. Choose one small decision waiting on your desk. Write a short prediction about its likely outcome using the lens of change and the lens of chance. Name the single constraint that will most limit success. Name the one piece of information that must arrive on time. Make the decision, observe for a short window, and write what actually happened. Keep the card where you can see it tomorrow. Soft bridge to the next chapter. With your lenses chosen and your judgment sharpening, it is time to harden that learning at the bench. You will build with your hands, test with real tools, and let small projects teach what books cannot. The craft of the tinkerer. Chapter 8. The Tinkerer's Bench. You roll up your sleeves and return to the place where ideas meet stubborn matter. The bench is simple: a lamp, a tray for small parts, a notebook with smudged edges. Here the wide theories earn their keep. Here learning stops being a sentence and becomes a habit in your hands. The goal is not to show off skill. The goal is to grow judgment by building small, honest things that either work or do not. The bench does not flatter. It answers. Begin by choosing projects that are small enough to finish and real enough to teach. A sensor that whispers when a door moves. A template that trims a noisy report. A jig that makes a repeated cut straight. Each project should touch the path from intention to outcome, even in miniature. You want to feel flow, friction, and recovery with your own hands. Work where a test can fit into a morning or an evening. Completion is the teacher here. Half-built things teach little. Set a simple rhythm. Frame the task in one plain sentence. Name the success condition in one more. Gather the minimum tools. Build the smallest version that can reveal truth. Test it in the same environment where it must live. Observe without drama. Write 2 lines in the notebook. What happened? What it means for the next step. This rhythm looks slow from far away. Up close it is efficient because it cuts out the ceremony and leaves only learning. Touch new tools often not to chase fashion, but to feel what is becoming possible. Hold a new sensor and notice what inputs it makes cheap. Open a new library and notice what patterns it makes simple. Try a new fastener and notice what joints it makes strong. The point is not to master every option. The point is to keep your hands near the frontier so your judgment knows where to look for leverage. Many breakthroughs are simply the moment when a fresh tool meets a clear need. Keep your scope small on purpose. The bench favors short loops. Long loops hide learning under layers of wish. A tiny script that trims a log will teach more in a day than a grand platform that never leaves a slide. A cardboard model that shows a flow will teach more than a perfect diagram that never meets reality. When a loop is short, mistakes cost little and courage grows. When courage grows, you test ideas you would have talked yourself out of last year. Respect materials. Every medium has a grain. Wood bends a little and then splits. Metal keeps shape and then fatigues. Software moves fast and then tangles. Processes can seem soft, yet they harden with habit and become stubborn to change. The tinkerer learns the grain by feel. You mark where a material likes to go, and you do not fight it with force unless there is no other way. This respect saves time and prevents the special kind of exhaustion that comes from arguing with physics or culture. Build an error culture for yourself. Treat mistakes as tutors. When something fails, resist the urge to hide it with clever talk. Name the fault in plain words. Was the assumption too hopeful? Was the join weak? Did the test live in an unreal setting? A fault named clearly becomes fuel. You can decide whether to strengthen the part, change the method, or adjust the requirement you wrote earlier. Over time, these small post-mortems sharpen your taste. You will sense weak joints before they break. Use constraints to shape creativity. Set a limit on time, on cost, or on the number of parts. A tight frame forces choices. It reveals what you truly value and where you are tempted to decorate work to impress yourself. The bench rewards the builder who can deliver a calm result within a simple frame. When you can do that on a small scale, the same discipline carries into large systems without fear. Invite reality in early. Run the thing in the environment that will judge it. If it is a tool for a tired colleague, hand it to them at the end of a long day and watch what happens. If it is a small workflow, try it on a real case with real inputs and real-time pressure. The bench teaches that a friendly lab can lie. Field truth is harder and kinder because it prevents months of polishing the wrong edge. Organize your bench so that starting is easy and stopping is clean. A messy bench discourages small sessions. You wait for a perfect block of time that never comes. A tidy bench with a ready tray invites 5 minutes of progress between other duties. End each session by placing tools where hands will find them next time and by leaving a short note to your future self. The note should name the very next action. A next action that fits inside a short breath keeps momentum alive. Document with sketches and short captions. You do not need art. You need memory anchors. Draw the path of a wire, the orientation of a part, the naming of a message. Mark the failure with an arrow and a word. This practice frees your mind from holding details and allows it to think about relationships. It also turns your notebook into a quiet library that teammates can borrow without a long meeting. Share your small builds, not to collect praise, to trade learning. Put a sample on the table at a short check-in and ask what feels off. Ask where it might break when used by a newcomer or by a person in a hurry. These conversations build a culture where progress is something you can hold in your hand and where critique makes things better without bruising pride. The bench changes teams in this way. People begin to speak in examples instead of slogans. Guard against the shine that leads to feature creep. A small tool that works invites additions. Each addition brings a tiny thrill. Then suddenly the tool is heavy and the joy is gone. Use a simple rule. If a new feature does not change a real decision or remove a real step, leave it for later. The bench is for building things that move the story forward. Entertainment belongs elsewhere. Learn recovery as a craft. A fragile system is a brittle promise. A resilient system accepts that things will go wrong and makes the way back easy. On the bench, this can mean an undue step that truly restores state. It can mean a visible indicator that tells you where the last good handoff happened. It can mean a reversible clamp instead of a permanent fastener until the fit is proven. Recovery protects trust. Trust is the quiet fuel of real adoption. Use the bench to test your whole map. Remove a part and watch where stress appears. Insert a small helper and see whether friction really falls or just moves. Change the order of 2 steps and measure how long it takes for the flow to feel smooth again. These tiny experiments turn the story in your head into a story on the table. The alignment between the two is coherence. Coherence is the deep promise of simplification. Tend your energy with care. The bench can consume attention if you let it. Set start and stop times. Keep sessions short unless you are in a true flow that serves a real deadline. Take breaks that involve movement and light. A tired tinkerer breaks more than they build. The body is a tool in this chapter. Treat it like one that you plan to use for many years. End each day with a craft check. Write 3 lines. What you built. What you learned. What you will do first next time. Then close the notebook and let the mind rest. Learning settles while you sleep. Many small knots untangle themselves when you stop pulling. Micro-action to close this chapter. Choose a single annoyance in your week that you can reach with your own hands. Frame it in 1 sentence. Build the smallest tool or change the smallest step that could remove that annoyance for a short window. Test it in the real place at the real time when the annoyance bites. Write 2 lines about the effect. If it helps, keep it and improve the fit. If it does not, retire it without guilt and choose a smaller target. Let the bench teach you with small wins and honest misses. Soft bridge to the next chapter. With scarred knuckles and a lighter frame, you are ready to enter the cadence that makes simplicity durable. Short loops of intent, action, and feedback will carry your work from effort to ease as you iterate toward silence. Chapter 9. Iterate towards silence. You return to the bench with a firmer stance. The engine is lighter, the surface is kinder, and your lenses are clear. Now the work is cadence. Iteration is not a sprint and collapse. It is a steady loop that turns noise into guidance and movement into progress. Think of a circle small enough to hold in your hand. Intent, action, feedback, decision. You will walk that circle again and again until the hum of the system drops from harsh to calm. Begin each loop with a single clear intention written in plain words. Name what you hope will become easier, faster, safer, or kinder. Keep the intention small enough to test within a short window. Then choose 1 lever to touch, not many. 1. Replace a clumsy label. Move a check earlier where it can still change the story. Join 2 steps that were twins. The point is to keep the loop tight so that cause and effect can be felt without guesswork. Make the change in the real environment where the work lives. Classroom truth is polite. Field truth is honest. Let the system breathe with the change in place long enough for patterns to appear. Do not rush to call victory or defeat after the first hour. At the same time, Do not drift for weeks without looking. Iteration lives in the balance between patience and attention. Measure less and measure what matters. Vanity measures are loud and friendly, but they rarely change decisions. Choose a few quiet signals that capture real outcomes. Time to first value, mistakes that reach a customer, handoffs that stall, questions that repeat. If a measure never alters your next step, retire it. Each extra graph is a tax on clarity. Keep only the gauges that a pilot would watch while guiding a craft through weather. Write what you expected to see before you look. A single honest line puts pride in its place. Then compare what happened with what you hoped. If the change helped, say how. If it hurt, say where. If it did nothing, do not decorate the result to protect effort. A flat line is a teacher. It says that your lever was not connected to the outcome the way you imagined. That truth saves time you would have spent polishing the wrong edge. Protect the integrity of the loop. Change one thing per loop when you can. When you must change two, name the risk that this will blur cause and effect. If you are tempted to change many, pause. Thrash is the enemy of learning. It feels energetic and leaves little to show. Steady iteration moves slower in the moment and wins more over a season because each decision rests on reality rather than mood. Design for recovery before you touch the system. A reversible step is courage made practical. Keep a simple way to roll back if harm appears. Save a snapshot of the state that matters. Leave a breadcrumb for your future self that says where to lift if you must unwind. This is not distrust. It is respect for living systems and the people who depend on them. When recovery is easy, risk becomes reasonable and learning accelerates. Honor rhythm. Set a loop length that fits the work. A day for copy and labels, a few days for a small flow, a week for a team habit. Begin the loop with intention. End the loop with a record. Share the record in short words with the people who feel the system. The rhythm is a drum you can hear through the noise of a busy week. It keeps attention from scattering and prevents side projects from growing their own gravity. Use contrast to reveal effect. When possible, let a small part of the flow keep the old path, while a neighboring part tries the new one. Watch both with the same measures over the same time. The point is not to play lab games. The point is to see whether the new path truly lowers friction or simply moves it. If running two paths is not safe, compare before and after in equal conditions, same hour, same task, same kind of day. Make it fair so that the decision that follows is fair. Expect seasonality. Mornings feel different than afternoons. Beginnings of projects feel different than ends. A loop that looks neutral on a slow day may shine when the load rises. A loop that shines during calm may bend under pressure. Learn the season of your system and avoid sweeping conclusions from an odd day. At the same time, do not hide behind seasons to protect weak ideas. When in doubt, run the loop again during a different season and compare. Guard against the itch to add something just to feel motion. The brain likes novelty. The system prefers coherence. If the curve of improvement has flattened for a time, hold your hand. Let the quiet become data. Some plateaus are rest before the next rise. Some plateaus are signals that you are looking in the wrong place. A pause taken on purpose is not delay. It is listening. Keep the map of the whole updated as you learn. When a loop reveals a new dependency, Add it to the story you carry in your head and on the page. When a loop shows that a guard can be lighter, rewrite the requirement to match. When a loop uncovers a term that confuses people, change the word at the surface and the meaning in the depth so they match. Iteration that does not update the map becomes a pile of anecdotes. Iteration that refreshes the map becomes institutional memory. Invite teammates into the loop without turning the loop into a ceremony. A 10-minute stand at the bench can be enough. What we aimed to change, what we touched, what we saw, what we will do next. One breath each, no speeches. This keeps alignment high and cost low. It also spreads the taste for honest trials, which is the culture you want when you are building for calm. Watch your energy like a signal. Tired minds add noise and call it creativity. Rested minds see patterns and remove weight. Keep loops short enough that you can finish them before your attention fractures. End sessions with a note to your future self that names the very next small action. Tighten a label, move a check, split a mixed part. A next step that fits inside a slow breath is a bridge from today to tomorrow. Teach iteration through story, not slogans. When a loop works, tell the tale of what you hoped, what you changed, what you measured, and what you learned. When a loop fails, tell that tale with the same calm. These stories turn method into culture. People repeat what they can remember, and they remember stories that respect their time and intelligence. Use iteration to lower variance, not only to raise averages. A system that sometimes flies and sometimes stalls is a system that drains trust. Many small loops can tighten the spread of outcomes so that a normal day is predictably good. Fewer escalations, fewer surprises. The quiet engine loves tight variance because it turns planning from guesswork into simple math that your team can feel in their bones. As silence grows, learn to listen for finer grain noise. Early in simplification, the loud rattles will get your attention. Later, small clicks remain, a wording that makes a newcomer pause, a handoff that still drops a detail once in a while, a review that creeps longer after lunch. These are signals that your loops are still useful. The work is not over. It is simply subtler. Close each loop with a decision. Continue, revert, or amplify. Continue when the effect is promising but needs another window. Revert when harm appears or when effort moved rather than fell. Amplify when the win is clear, carrying the change to more places where the same friction lives. Write the decision in your ledger with one line of reasoning. That line becomes guidance for future loops facing similar shapes. End your day with a loop check. Name the intention you held. Name the lever you touched. Name the effect you saw. Name the decision you took. Then put down the tools and let the mind cool. Learning settles when heat fades. Micro-action to close this chapter. Choose a single step in your current path that often causes a pause or a sigh. Write a short intention for that step. Change one small element that you can reverse, a label, an order, a default. Watch 3 real passes through that step, noting time, errors, and mood in a line or two. Decide to continue, revert, or amplify. Record the decision and the why. Repeat tomorrow with a neighbor step. Soft bridge to the next chapter. With your loop steady and the noise falling, the path to growth opens. Now you will learn to scale without waking the clatter you worked so hard to quiet. Placing the right part in the right place and letting volume serve clarity rather than bury it. Chapter 10. Scale without noise. You stand in a room that feels larger than before. The engine hums with calm power. The surfaces welcome tired hands, and the map holds steady in one mind shared by many. Now the work shifts from tuning to repeating. Scaling is not about turning every knob to the limit. Scaling is the art of placing the right part in the right place and making it easy to make again and again without waking the clatter you worked so hard to quiet. You will keep the promise of simplicity while serving more people, more cases, and more days. Begin with intent. Write in plain words what must stay true as volume rises. The spine must stay light. The surface must stay kind. Recovery must stay easy. Quality must stay visible. These are not slogans. They are guide rails for choices that come fast when growth arrives. If a proposal risks any of these, slow down and design a safer path. If a proposal strengthens them, clear the lane. Standardize where sameness brings safety and savings. Standardization is not a cage. It is a sturdy shelf. Choose a small set of parts and patterns that cover most cases with calm reliability. Give them clear names, ready templates, and simple assembly steps. A good standard does two jobs at once. It speeds up routine work and reduces room for accidental complexity. When you can reach for a known part with confidence, you protect attention for the changes that truly need thought. Keep variation where it protects performance or joy. There will be edges where a single form cannot fit all needs. Mark those edges with care. Allow a few well-designed variants that exist for real reasons you can say in one line. Variants should be rare, well-documented, and paired with tests that keep them honest. Each allowed variant is a promise you must keep at scale. Keep only the promises that return more value than they cost. Design joints for assembly, not parts for inspection. At scale, the way parts meet matters more than the parts themselves. A crisp joint reduces training time, lowers error rates, and makes upgrades gentle. Joints include physical interfaces, data handoffs, and role boundaries. Make each joint simple enough to understand at a glance and strong enough to hold under load. When a joint fails, treat it as a design message, not a human fault. Improve the joint, and the system will forgive more easily next time. Shift from heroics to flow. Early on, a single person can carry the whole in their head and save a day with fast decisions. At scale, heroics do not scale. Flow does. Shape your process so that the usual path is smooth and requires few handoffs. Reserve hero work for rare recovery when reality truly bends. A team that trusts the path will deliver more with less heat than a team chasing last-minute rescues. Choose tools that make the right move the easy move. Good tools embody standards, expose joints, and guide order of operations without nagging. They reduce options where options add noise and highlight decisions where judgment belongs. A tool that hides complexity without blinding the user becomes quiet leverage. At scale, even small nudges in the right direction, repeated many times, add up to large relief. Build factories, not monuments. A monument looks perfect once. A factory produces good work again and again. Document your patterns as living recipes rather than static pictures. A living recipe names ingredients, steps, timing, tests, and common failure points. It also names the reason behind each step so that future changes can honor intent. Recipes travel across teams and time zones better than memory. They turn knowledge into a tool anyone can pick up. Measure cost, time, and reliability in the same frame. A move that saves time but increases defects is not a win. A move that lowers cost but slows recovery is not a win. Put the three measures beside each other whenever you judge an option. If two improve and one holds steady, you are on strong ground. If one improves while the others suffer, search for a cleaner design or keep looking. This balanced view keeps you from borrowing quiet today and paying with noise tomorrow. Protect recovery paths as you grow. The more people you serve, the more chances there are for surprises. Recovery must stay one step away. Keep simple ways to roll back a change, to replay a handoff, to restore a state. Train new hands to use these paths without shame. A system that recovers with grace is a system that earns trust under stress. Trust is the true currency of scale. Plan capacity with honest eyes. Peaks arrive, lulls arrive. Design for typical days with a little room to breathe and a clear plan for peak days. Use cues that smooth bursts rather than spike every step. Use buffers where they prevent cascades. Use simple signals to show when load is rising so that teams can shift attention early. Capacity planning is not a spreadsheet game. It is a practice of keeping promises when the world presses harder than usual. Train with the story, not just the steps. New teammates should learn the why before the how, the goal the system serves, the constraints that truly bind, the user moments that matter most. Then the steps make sense and are easier to remember. This practice reduces drift as you add people. It also invites fresh eyes to catch weak spots that veterans stopped seeing. The story keeps the whole intact while hands multiply. Audit drift gently and often. Drift happens when local fixes pile up and the map no longer matches the machine. Short reviews keep this in check. Pick a small slice each week. Compare the recipe to reality. Where they differ, either update the recipe or correct the path. Avoid long blame sessions. You are trimming a hedge, not digging up a forest. Frequent light trims keep the shape healthy. Guard the surface through growth. It is tempting to expose inner options as requests arrive from more corners. Resist. Keep the entry simple. Move power behind context where it belongs. Strengthen defaults as you learn from real use. The surface is your handshake with the world. If it stays calm, your depth can carry more without strain. Let data serve judgment, not replace it. At scale, you will have more measures than ever. Keep only those that guide action and retire the rest. Numbers that cannot change a decision are decoration. Use small dashboards that tell the truth about the few things that matter now. Pair them with brief stories from the people who live in the system each day. When numbers and stories agree, move with confidence. When they disagree, investigate with curiosity. Keep your calendar aligned with the spine. Schedule the work that moves the engine early in the day and early in the week. Place cross-team reviews close to those moments. Avoid scattering the core across many days. At scale, time is a lever. Where you place attention in time shapes how the system behaves. Let your calendar teach the organization what you value. Create a simple path for change requests. Growth brings ideas from every corner. Without a path, ideas pile up as noise or slip in as quiet drift. With a path, ideas arrive in a brief form that names the problem, the proposed move, the expected effect, and the smallest safe test. Many ideas will become small loops, a few will become patterns, and some will wait. The path makes this fair and transparent. Leave a small space at the end of every build for the next question. Do not pack the system wall to wall. A little slack in joints, a little time in schedules, a little margin in capacity. These are not wastes. They are invitations for reality to speak before harm grows. Slack is how a living system breathes as it grows. Close each day with a scale check. In a few lines, name one pattern reused, one joint strengthened, one recovery path tested, and one surface kept simple. These small marks tell you whether growth is serving clarity or eroding it. Over weeks, they draw a picture of a system that becomes more itself as it becomes larger. Micro-action to close this chapter. Choose one pattern you already use often. Write a living recipe for it on a single page. Name the ingredients, the steps, the test for success, the common failure, and the reason the pattern exists. Share it with one teammate and ask for one suggestion that would make the pattern easier to assemble. Apply that suggestion and use the recipe 3 times this week. Note what changed in effort and calm. Soft bridge to the closing of this work. You have learned to see the spine, lighten the frame, hold the whole, calm the surface, widen your lenses, learn at the bench, and turn loops into progress. Now we will bring these threads together in a final note that honors the risks ahead and ends with a steady hope, the kind that lasts. You now have a quiet method you can carry anywhere. You can see the spine of a project, remove what does not serve, write clearer requirements, and hold the whole map without strain. Your surface is kinder, your loops are shorter, and your recovery paths are ready. Work stops feeling like a scramble and starts feeling like a craft. Days open with a first, honest move. Evenings give back some energy. Teams align faster because the story is simple and shared. This is progress you can feel in your hands. If this guide helped, let us keep the circle alive. Tap like so the platform knows this practice matters. Subscribe to stay close to future chapters and small field lessons you can use the same day. Share this with one friend or teammate who is carrying too much weight and needs a gentler way to win. In the comments, write one tiny change you will test this week and the single sign you will watch to judge it. I will read and respond with respect. Keep the metaphor close. When the room grows loud, return to the bench, listen for the hum, and choose the next small step. We will keep building with calm hands and honest eyes.